Wednesday, March 17th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, oh shit, it's Wolverine.
Oh shit. Let's do this. So, I bought a bike yesterday, and
Bought a bike?
Yeah, and today was the very first day that my office building would allow bikes to be brought up the service elevator, as is the law, the new law.
So I am assuming that you rode this bike to work and had a wonderful time.
No, in fact, I didn't, and the reason I didn't, is because... number one, I'm going to talk about the bike stuff later, but the reason I didn't basically is because I didn't know how long it would take, and I wanted to get to work on time.
Yeah, you got to try that on a weekend.
So on the weekend, I'm going to ride to work and back and time it with the stopwatch and such, and then next week I'll be able to ride to work, and leave at the appropriate time. But anyway, I am glad I did not ride bike to work today, because I did not realize today was... Everyone get the fuck off the street before I kill you day.
Oh my God. I forgot too. I get to work and I'm sitting there and I look on Fark and someone says, blah, 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 St. Patrick's Day. And I'm like, oh, crap. I better not go anywhere for lunch today because I'm in Midtown, right by where the stupid parade is.
The thing is, I'm like, oh, but the parade isn't today, right? It's like Sunday, right? Oh shit, parade's today. Fuck.
So, I go out to lunch because, of course, 3 hours later, I totally forget about this. So I go out to lunch. It's like 11:30, and there's just a crowd of people in green surrounding my building outside the ground. It's just, woo! Woo! Staggering around, yelling at each other, throwing shit.
There aren't even any sports teams doing well. I mean, if a sports team just won, then I can justify some woo!
The best part is that cops, like last year, were lined up on 42nd Street between Grand Central and the parade. And they were just stopping anyone who looked like they were either underage or had open containers of alcohol, giving them tickets right there. And then there was a booth they could go pay the ticket so it wouldn't get mailed home to their mom.
Very excellent.
It was like $25 was one of the tickets because I saw a whole group of kids getting it at the same time.
Very good.
But, I went to a Starbucks figuring, there's a long line, but all those people are in line for the bathroom, not for coffee. So I go get my coffee. And as I'm walking out, I trip over something. You know what I tripped over? Dude passed out in front of the door of the Starbucks and vomited all over himself.
That's about right.
I literally tripped over the guy, and I kind of turned around. I'm like, are you okay? And he's wearing green and vomit. And he's
green vomit?
It's covered. It was kind of a pinkish vomit.
It could have been green vomit if he had drinking green beer or green coffee or ate a green muffin.
But you know what he does? He gives me the classic thumbs up, I'm okay. He did not look okay. And I waved to a cop, and he's like, yeah, I saw him. I'll deal with it.
Spray him with the hose. You need to wave at the fireman.
I did see something cool, though, going to the parade route because I went across it.
Oh, shit.
Because the parade didn't start yet, and I wanted to go to Le Pen to the end. I wasn't going to screw up my lunch plans for this BS.
Okay.
And you know what the cops have now? They have, they're command center vehicles where they can set it up. One of those vehicles now has this gigantic tower on a lift that comes out of the top, and there's a little glass enclosed pod up there, and there's one cop sitting in there watching the crowd, controlling all the cameras.
Ooh.
It was pretty cool looking.
Anyways, yeah, so I basically had a similar situation where I was in work. I didn't realize it was St. Patrick's Day. I didn't need to eat lunch out, because I ate my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But it was so nice out. I looked out the window. I didn't look down. I only looked straight out the window at the Barclays building, formerly the Lehman Brothers building, and when you would never know it was never the Barclays building, the way they have it going. But I didn't look down, so I didn't realize. So I went down, just to go for a walk during lunch. And as soon as I walked out the door, I was like, oh, fuck.
There's really nothing you can do at that point, though. They're already out.
But anyway, so I get out, I just start walking around, I was looking for a plate because the office usually stocks disposable plates, but they ran out, so I wanted to get a reusable plate to eat lunch with. And they didn't have one at Duane Reade, so I just came back, but it was all these streets were closed off and the cops weren't letting you in. And unless you had a ticket to Radio City because it was right next to it. And then so I had to wait and I had to tell the cop, look, I'm going to the Duane Reade. And he was like, all right.
You know how I got around? Because I couldn't get back. The parade BS was getting in my way, seriously.
He's like, you're probably going to the parade. And I'm like, no, really, I'm going to Duane Reade. Do you see an inch of green on my body?
I accidentally wore green. I had this tiny little thing.
Do you smell alcohols on me,
But I couldn't get back, so you know what I did? I went into the subway station at Bryant Park.
And you cut under.
Yeah.
Very good.
And I had to pay, but, unlimited Metro card, whatever.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Good call.
I'm using that tunnel a lot more now that it's basically free.
See, what was worse is I finally got back to the office through all the drunken people, fuckers, right? And I leave work, and before I left work, I looked out the window at the street to make sure. And I saw a few green here and there, but it didn't look crazy from up above. I walk out of the building, and there is this, Red Bull truck thing parked directly in front of my building.
That's bad news.
With, a sound system playing at the front. See, I'm on the 7th floor, so I didn't hear it, and I was looking out the other window, so I didn't see it. And there is a drunken mob in front of it, dancing and drinking and partying it up
That's
at
just
this
great.
bar that's right next to my building. And so I basically ducked into the subway real quick, and then I came home real easy.
Now, what I wonder, remember Beacon every year, we had the opening bit of the pub crawl. But remember last year, the last pub crawl we had to deal with, they were going to ban it?
Yep. Did they ban it?
I have no idea. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
I have to ask Alex and Jess.
The one thing that sort of, saved the day from being just a drunken mess, hating everybody, was I was on the subway over here just now, and I'm standing on the subway like you do, waiting to get to Queensboro Plaza. I'm in the tunnel. I look behind me. There's a dude. He's reading some Scott Pilgrim. I'm like, what's up, dude? And,
See, now, social currency in action.
Yeah. We talked a little bit. I told him the mocha was in a few weeks. He's like, oh, he knew what it was. He just kept missing it. But because it's earlier this year, he said he'd probably see me there. And he likes Scott Pilgrim. He likes Walking Dead. He just doesn't have a lot of money. So he doesn't
like most comic fans.
So he doesn't buy too many. But, so I was like, hey, not everyone on this horrible day is horrible. And he was reading volume 4. So, it wasn't like, it was the real deal.
So what? Someone who's reading volume 2, they don't cut it?
Well, if they're reading volume 1, that means they might just be trying it out. But if they're reading volume 4, then they're definitely the fan.
See, at least in my perception, the people, when you try to get someone who's not into geeky stuff, or, they're the kind of person who says, oh, I wouldn't like Scott Pilgrim. I don't read comic books. The same people who say things like, I don't like robot shows. They wouldn't even try it. They were they'd have the first volume. They'd read 2 pages of it and be like, this is crap. It's just video game BS. And they wouldn't even bother. If you're holding it for more than 5 minutes and it's open, you probably already like it.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty.
Yeah.
So for once, right, this is a rare event, right? Very rare. I think we should make it less rare because I think the fact that it's sort of one of those self-fulfilling prophecies, because it is so rare that we do this, it is so rare that we, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But basically, I'm going to do a geek back.
Oh, shit. It's been, what, like a year and a half?
Yeah, people forget this, that, I think it's the podcast. See, this is the thing. Philosophically, I don't want Geeknights. There are a lot of podcasts out there that they respond to their users in the podcast, listeners, users. You tell them a programmer, right? They respond to the show listeners in the show so much, right, that it becomes a community show where it's about the community and it's not accessible to people who aren't in the community anymore. Right, so I wanted to avoid that, but at the same time, I like getting feedback. But the way to encourage feedback is to include the feedback in the show, and that brings you closer to being a community podcast, which I don't want to be. So you have to achieve the fine balance.
I would say there are 2 secondary weird complications we have that a lot of times people will say something really interesting, and I argue with them, or I have a response, and I either just email them back or it's in the forum and I just post.
Exactly. But anyway, I have a geek back for reals that is not, inside. Basically, if you remember, there is a listener named Chase Gordon who has moved up the ranks on the listener ranking scale.
Isn't he pretty much like #1 listener who isn't already a member of our crew?
I don't know. He has moved up the ranks significantly. He's in perhaps the top 5 listeners now.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. And basically, he... Right, #1 thing. I think he's one of those guys that we always meet at the concerts at PAX. He's one of those guys.
Do you know which one?
I think he might be the animating one that Emily talked to, but I can't remember. I'm not 100% sure.
How we kind of made friends with them by accident because we happened to stand near them at these concerts.
So #2, he is definitely the guy. I'm almost 100% positive. He is the dude who did Rim and Scott's Old Rochester whiskey in that comic. He is also definitely 100%, no, question at all. He is the guy who won the Geeknights ad contest somewhat recently. So I sent him all 6 volumes of Akira, which was the prize for said contest.
I forget, did you send the remastered new one or the old original?
I sent him the old one. They're basically exactly the same, 100%.
Oh, there you go.
So there was no point in, even deciding about it. So because I sent him this prize, he sent back some other stuff, right? He sent me some emails and such, but then he sent me this book. And this book is called The Devil in the White City. Hold on, the full title is not displaying. Devil in the White City, Murder, Magic, and Madness at the Fair That Changed America. And it is
Is that the World's Fair?
Is the Chicago era 1893 World's Fair.
Perhaps the best World's Fair.
No, the 1960s-ish New York Queens World's Fair.
Why is that one better?
Because that's my World's Fair. And it had Belgian waffles.
Because you were there.
I wasn't there. But Belgian waffles. Can't lose.
Anyway.
I
can make Belgian waffles. The diner has Belgian waffles.
Do you not know about the World's Fair Belgian waffles?
I know all about it. We actually talked about this on the show, I'm pretty sure.
You will not make that Belgian, find someone who ate one and you will not. I mean, my mom who had that Belgian waffle, she was at the Pain Quotidien and she ate that waffle. And
that's not a Belgian waffle, though. Le Pain Quotidien, that's like
the point
a snack.
is that the World's Fair waffle was still better than that waffle, and that's a pretty good waffle. So
could be rose-tinted glasses.
I don't know about that. Anyway, the point is you're not going to duplicate that waffle.
All right.
Secondly, so he sent me this book. All right, it's like, okay, awesome listener sends me a book because he wants me to read it. He's a big fan of it, and it sounds, I haven't read it yet, but it sounds like it's up my alley. I like World's Fairs a whole lot. If I was the mayor of any place, my first thing would be to get the World's Fair to be in that place. And the thing that makes him so high up in the rankings, because, people have sent us stuff before. Sending me a book, it's like, okay, send a book.
Yeah, I remember the cornucopia.
Yeah, someone sent a Boo cornucopia, just as good as sending a book, right?
I've got my Pip-Boy.
Inside the box with the book, and he was smart, he used a $5, USPS flat rate box, right? Inside the book was a letter on paper, right? But it wasn't just a scrawling on paper. It was a prepared paper, perhaps the letter in itself, a work of art that he created, right? It was all colored, all brown to look all old. And he typed on it it appears to look like he typed on it with an actual typewriter. If not, some sort of really awesome, looks like a typewriter font and somehow gets the printer ink to look like typewriting trick, right? And the contents of his letter were incredibly steampunk-y and awesome. And I wish I would have remembered to bring it over here. Perhaps I will put this letter on the internets for people to read rather than waste time on the show reading this letter. But it is a high-quality letter, and the high-qualityness of this letter is what makes Chase Gordon the high-quality Geeknights listener.
Wait, so your geek back is basically, this one guy's awesome, all the rest of you...
Step up the game. Not that you're not awesome, it's that you have not yet displayed your awesomeness.
By giving us stuff.
That's right. We're giving you free stuff, entertainment, right now. Therefore, and we don't ask for money, we are so generous. People who right, and you think we're awesome because you're listening to us. Therefore, right, why do you think we're awesome? Because we're generous. So if you want to be awesome, you must also be generous. Generous equals awesomeness.
That is bad rationalization.
That is how the internet works, right? Someone makes a funny video, puts it on YouTube for free. They're great generosity, and everyone says, "Oh my God, you are so awesome." That is how the world works now.
Unless that YouTube video is of you, but not created by you.
If it's of you, that is also awesome.
In a way.
Yeah.
You can achieve internet fame by making a really sweet ramp, trying to jump it, and hurting yourself.
There are many ways to display awesomeness. Giving us stuff is one of them.
I don't know. I like the way peacocks do it with their feathers. Like, check me out.
That's what you got to do. What do you think I'm peacocking right now?
See, we'll know we've gone too far if we ever have a panel that is basically, watch us strut and peacock.
We should get some peacock costumes. I'm sure they make them.
I'm sure we can find one. So
it has to exist.
In some actual newsy kind of stuff, Emily sent me this. The traditional wisdom, everyone knows, if you're an anime fan, that by and large, animators in Japan get paid pretty much crap.
Doesn't pretty much anyone in any sort of awesome job in Japan get paid crap?
Not all of them. I mean, like sumo wrestlers get pretty good money.
Well, that's
once they get up in the ranks, though, they don't get paid anything in the beginning.
Yeah, but anyone who's low ranking gets paid.
But it's not just. I mean, look in America too. Like in America, you want to be a video game programmer. You're not going to make any money in most cases. You're going to be testing.
It depends what kind. Testing. Yeah, that's different from being a
But
programmer.
Anytime you have an industry where a lot of people are dedicated to it, they want to be in the industry. They're willing to sacrifice other aspects of careers just in order to be working in the industry. And there's a very small number of actual good positions in said industry. You get a lot of low wages, exploitation, and generally crap.
That is true.
So Emily pointed out this article that kind of takes all of that talk about how bad it is in Japan with both video game programming and animating and gives some hard
also
numbers.
manga. Don't forget the manga, too.
Oh my God, manga people.
But I guess they're not giving numbers for manga, right?
Now, basically, they asked a bunch of people in 2chan and got a whole bunch of responses that are all cataloged on this Japanese site that I can't read, but I'm linking to an English site talking about it. And people who do these jobs are saying, yeah, here's how much I make and here's what it's like. Some of these animators, about a quarter of them in Japan, make maybe the equivalent of 10 grand a year.
So isn't Japan really expensive to live in?
Well, Tokyo's really expensive to live in.
Oh, okay. So
Japan's also
do they
pretty
live
expensive.
in Tokyo, or do they? Yeah, I mean, where
the
do they,
stereotype of the animator who can barely afford ramen and that's all they can afford to eat
is not a stereotype.
No, it's pretty much true. In fact, they're lucky to get ramen sometimes.
Yeah, this is why you look at things in Japan, right? People live in really tiny apartments. Totally true. People have a kotatsu because they're not going to pay for heat. Totally true.
Except look at us. We want a kotatsu just because they're cool.
Yeah, isn't that so weird?
Yeah.
People eating ramen because it's really cheap and they can't afford,
like?
sushi or meats because meats are wicked expensive.
It'd be like
totally
the equivalent
true.
of someone in the Midwest saying, you know what? I have this dishwasher, but I'd rather not have it. I want a sink that I have to manually wash dishes in because it's cool. I see people out in other places doing that.
I don't know. I think the thing with the kotatsu is that it's also a table.
Yeah, but it's also really efficient heating. I remember a lot of Japanese homes don't have central heating or cooling.
Yep.
Which I still think is kind of a problem.
Yeah.
But all that aside, the numbers here are pretty soul crushing if you're one of those people who thinks like, I'll make it over there. And in America, it's kind of the same way. You think, I'll make it in the video game industry.
Does this supply numbers about like what, the high level anime peoples make? Like what does Miyazaki make? I'm sure Miyazaki.
Oh yeah. Well, it breaks it down into groups like 33%, 10%, something like that. And obviously Hideo is making a lot of money. I'm pretty
Kojima.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is like he's obviously much richer than we are. There's no question about that. He's probably wealthy. But I question whether, is Kojima really as rich as, say, like, Rock Band Dude in the U.S.,
Or Rock Band Dude in Japan.
That's true, too. But, Rock Band isn't from Japan.
Yeah.
It's Harmonix, Activision,
Oh, I thought you meant, like, a guy in a rock band.
No, the guy...
Like, just a rock band
I'm comparing game developers to game developers here, I don't think that, like...
Well, here's where I think a big difference is. In Japan, and I think this is primarily cultural, more people are more willing to put up with more salaryman bullshit. I think a lot of people who animate do it out of passion, and basically that is why the industry gets away with paying so little. But a lot of people, the argument they make in Japan, and this is probably true, is that, well, if we paid the animators more, we couldn't make nearly as much anime, and almost all of it would be completely outsourced overseas. No more animation in Japan.
Yep. I mean,
probably true.
Think about someone like Satoshi Kon, right? He makes amazing movies, for Madhouse and such, right? Or think about someone like Moriyama, who is the head of Madhouse, the studio, which, makes Satoshi Kon's movies, right? Well, he's got money. We saw him. He came to the U.S. He had nice clothes. He had a expensive, DSLR camera. He's probably making six figures, and the first digit is probably not a 1, I would guess, right? But he's probably not making like millions. Whereas I'm pretty sure, right, someone with a similar position, if they were making like movies in the US, like someone at like DreamWorks making, animated movies, a director of those is maybe a millionaire. I don't have any like numbers for this, but it's sort of like my feeling is that, in America, the same job, even in the higher levels, is getting more money,
Yep. Well, I mean,
not like it's what I'm trying to say is that the director, the higher level people in Japan aren't exploiting the lower ones. It's like they're also not making as much as they would in in the US. Everyone is making more than doing the whole.
Well, I think
chain.
A secondary part of it is that a large number of people become fans of something specific like animation. and basically want that to be their life no matter what. Like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be an animator. And I think for a lot of things in America, video games are one of the, and video games and sports are some of the only careers that are like that. I mean, the people who make it to professional sports and even, the amateurs make a lot of money. Everyone else, bupkis.
The thing is, the exploitation in American sports is in the college sports, college football and college basketball. It doesn't happen in baseball and hockey because those are primarily, they have minor leagues as opposed to college, which is why I really think if I was in charge, I don't think there should be college basketball, college football. I know that's like blasphemy. It should be minor leagues. If your career is going to be basketball or you're going to try for it, you shouldn't be going to college, taking up someone's spot.
Well. You should be going to college because only 1% of those people are going to make it.
That's true. But it's like, this college, the basketball helps schools in that it brings in money. But at the same time, we could just, simulate that by taking money from the minor league basketball and giving it to the schools, by other means. But you should just go to minor league basketball, get hired by a team. And if you're not good enough, then go to college.
There's some really interesting quotes from this article, too. One guy, he's a video game programmer, said, "My only take-home pay is the smiles of our customers." And I think this guy has the completely wrong idea about a business model because as River City Ransom taught me, smiles are free.
That's right. That is right.
It's an interesting read. And if you read Japanese, you can look at the actual article that talks about this a lot more. But I think there's a really bigger root issue. I don't want to talk about it a lot on this show, but think about the argument they're making, in Japan at least. If we paid these people a living wage, then we could not do the job here at all, and it would just be overseas, and there'd be almost no animation made in this country. And
that is true. Despite the collapse, there's a lot less fans, a lot less people watching, a lot less people buying. They are able to put out an incredibly large amount of content that is, it's not the highest quality.
It's subsidized, though, basically on the backs of the workers.
That's true. That's basically what it is. Because these people are paid almost nothing, they are able to make all this anime, and it's at the quality level that it's at.
But think about what's going on in the world right now. Many industrialized nations, especially the U.S. and Japan, much of the money they make, much of their economy is based on intellectual property. And that's why there's all these fights about, protecting intellectual property as opposed to physical property. And their worry is that, the third world or countries that aren't number one, that aren't the US and Japan, are going to steal their intellectual property and just copy it and not pay us back. That shouldn't be the thing they're worried about. What they should be worried about is that if things continue, eventually the third world countries are just going to manufacture intellectual property that's just as good.
Yeah, the thing is that's not happened.
Not yet, but it will. There's this slow rise of the Korean animation that's getting better and better and better as time goes on because that's where they were outsourcing a lot of the low-level animation stuff.
The thing is they're able to animate things that look really great. They can't tell a story for crap so
Not
far.
yet. I mean, it's going to happen, though. I mean, the more they fight outsourcing like this, the more it's going to happen anyway in the long run. We got to figure out more fundamental ways to deal with the economy of the fact that it's not viable to make the things that people expect in the industrialized world, IP or not, internally. And if we do it externally, we kind of set ourselves up for a fall regardless.
The thing is, the US and Japan, pretty much more than any other country in all of history, have been the only ones that have really been able to majorly export their own culture worldwide.
Well, look at Japan. Look at how much
a movie that's made in the U.S. is going to, like Avatar, right, plays around the world. Whereas even the hottest movie in France, that might play around the world, but that's just one. Whereas pretty much every blockbuster movie, in the U.S. plays around the world.
Yep. And compare the population of Japan as a percentage of the world population, and then consider the mind share that Japanese pop culture has worldwide. But anyway, things of the day. I want to use this as a thing of the day just because we haven't talked about it in a while, and it is a surprisingly solid webcomic. But Anime News Nina has the 100th comic up, and it's pretty great. And I realize now really why I like Anime News Nina so much, independently of the fact that it's kind of surprisingly biting and harsh on anime culture, which is not what you would expect for the kind of semi-official webcomic for something like the Anime News Network.
Yeah, usually when you have, say, like, a movie magazine or, like, it's going to be rah movies, right? Whereas Anime News Network is not always rah anime. Sometimes it's like, hey, anime.
Yep.
And that's really, that's kind of good. I think that helps out the anime industry a lot. And I think it would be better if, some other industries had similar news outlets. And Anime News Network, Anime News Nina is definitely a part of that.
Yep. But I realized something else because in the 100th comic, she kind of breaks the wall by having a nerd call her out in a way that made me realize that we do the exact same freaking thing. Look at all the references in Anime News Nina. It's to anime that I care about and that Scott cared about, stuff that was popular as we were getting into anime. I mean, she does this whole thing about Fushigi Yugi and all that. It's all like 90s anime and OAVs, and I don't know. She's cut from the same anime fan stripe that we are.
No, she's probably our age.
Yeah. I just found that interesting. So if you guys aren't reading it and you're an anime fan, you probably should be.
Yep.
And if you feel offended by it at all, you're probably one of those people. Huh?
Oh, so there's this website I found today called codeorgan.com. And you go to it and you get a picture of an organ and you think, oh, it's an organ. Let me play it. And you start clicking on the keys and nothing happens. And you go, oh, what the hell is this organ that doesn't even play? The way it works is you type in a website, like a URL, like google.com or something like that. And then you push the button that says play this website. And what will happen is it will take the code of that website. I guess it doesn't explain exactly how it works, or at least I haven't read it yet. It takes, the HTML, JavaScript, whatever from that website and somehow converts that into, music that is in the key of whatever, and it gives it a synth loop and a drum loop and whatever. And
now how it almost sounded from the music sample you played, at least, that it just uses the HTML to seed some sort of set of existing nice sounds that will all mesh together no matter what.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I'm going to figure it out. But regardless, it's pretty cool. And, you can go and type in different sites to see what they sound like. And it's fun.
See, what you should do is make sites that are literally just things like H1, H1, H1 and see what it does with it.
That's a good idea. It's figure out how reverse engineer how it works.
Yeah.
Thing is, I think it'd be easier to just go and look at the code of Code Organ to figure out how it works.
Oh, is the code available?
I'm pretty sure it's probably like JavaScript or something. I could probably...
Yeah, but the JavaScript might just be calling stuff on a server.
Let me see. It's using some jQuery stuff. I could probably figure out how this works.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's a cool concept, but people have done things like this a million times before. And
It's a Flash thing, I guess. I don't know.
What they usually do is basically set it up to where it'll sound good no matter what, and the source input is kind of just a random seed, as opposed to it actually kind of making the music of the website. It just makes a song that the idea of that song happens to be the entirety of the text of the website.
We'll see.
Yeah. So, the meta moment, which we often forget to do, but is important because very soon, conventions. Penny Arcade Expo is going to be the...
East. Penny Arcade Expo
Yes, East in Boston next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend.
As in Friday, March 26, 27, 28.
We are doing 3 panels there, Beyond Dungeons & Dragons, Losing Should Be Fun, and Beyond Candyland.
Oh, shit.
Also... Action Castle,
which is not our panel technically.
Yep, but it'll be awesome. Probably more awesome than our panels.
Yeah, you should, if you're gonna, I don't care what panels you go to, Action Castle is like the mandatory at PAX East. Okay, number 2 on Friday, April 2nd. Saturday 3rd and Sunday 4th.
In the same bad time, same bad place.
In the same exact building in Boston, the Heinz Convention Center, is Anime Boston.
We will be there doing 5 panels.
5? Oh, God.
Yeah. The thing is, they're almost all on Friday, and then Saturday is dick around and go to the concert day.
And Sunday is go home day.
Yeah.
We got
After a week in Boston.
We got a flight Sunday, so I don't know how much Anime Boston will be doing on Sunday, but regardless.
Yep. Saturday, though, I'm looking forward to.
Very much.
So big con stuff coming up. The book club's still going. It's Carl Sagan's Cosmos, which you should all read.
Oh, and don't forget that April 10th and 11th is the Museum of Comic and Cartoon Arts Festival in New York City.
Always awesome, always relevant to Wednesday.
We will be doing zero panels.
We will be
walking
around.
around as schmucks, just like everyone else.
Well, we will also be buying more comics than we should.
We'll be. I'm going to have I'm thinking about doing this, right? And here's what my policy is going to be at Mocha, right? Basically, it is the Scott's Mocha Challenge. The way this works is you go up to me, right, or I come up to you, and I say, I will buy X that you want me to buy if you buy X that I want you to buy.
Huh.
And that's how, and the thing is, you can't, they got to be relatively equal in price. I can't be like, I'll buy that $1 mini comic if you buy that $50 slipcase, unless you agree to,
I like this idea.
as long, the prices are pretty close. So that way, basically it'll sell more shit. And you'll be able to, it's like, hey, that guy says this is good. I will trust you, but only if you also trust me.
Well, now that we live in the city, one thing I'm going to do differently is if anything is cool, I'm just buying it.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not even going to. Before, I would not buy things because I didn't want to carry them around the rest of the day.
I'm bringing a bag to carry stuff around in.
Bringing a rolly bag?
No, a big bag.
I have a rolly bag that's basically dedicated to carrying board games to events now.
Do you want to bring that to carry comics home?
I don't want to be that guy. Of course.
The thing is, that guy
has a rolly thing already full that he brings to the con.
Exactly. Those guys who bring their rolly things full of comics usually bring a long box full of comics they're trying to sell and or get graded and or
instead I'll bring
get
an empty
autographed and or all three together. They'll get them autographed, then they'll get them graded, then they'll sell them at the con.
I'll bring an empty one and then I'll leave with it full.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So anyway.
So, Wolverine?
Oh shit.
Oh shit.
Oh shit, it's Wolverine. So recently, right, I don't know if people know this, Marvel has, some comics that are the Ultimate comics, right? Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, whatever. And the original idea, this started like a decade ago or over a decade ago. And the idea was like, hey, reading Spider-Man is kind of hard because it's on like issue bajillion. And if you haven't been reading Spider-Man since the 60s, it's hard to figure out, learn everything that's going on if all you've ever done is watch some Spider-Man movies, right? So they made Ultimate Spider-Man. It was #1, and you could just start reading it from the beginning, and you would know everything, and you wouldn't need to, know all this stuff to understand Spider-Man. And they did this for a bunch of different comics. So you could just start reading all the Ultimate comics, and you'd be set. The problem is, this was 10 years ago. So if you want to start reading the Ultimate comics today, you've got 10 years of comics you have to read. So it's like, oh my God, right? They totally defeated the purpose. So it's like, well, if we want someone to start reading comics now, what do? I don't know. So they came out with Ultimate Spider-Man #1 again. They reset. And I think it's still the same universe, but it's reset to a point at which you don't need to know anything. And, they made an entry point. Everything is now #1 again. So these were all super cheap and discounted because, I buy my comics on the pre-order internets. And one of the comics I got was Ultimate X #1. And I knew that, okay, the letter X is in the title. This is going to have something to do with mutants, perhaps X-Men. But I didn't really know for sure what it was until I read it. And I got it and I read it. And basically, much to my surprise, it was Son of Wolverine. I don't know why they just didn't title it Son of Wolverine. I guess because I probably would never have bought it if it was titled that.
Sons, because I'm sure he has like 1,000 kids.
Lol. No, it's just it's basically this comic is Son of Wolverine, and I started reading it, and after the first few pages, I sort of realized, oh, it's Son of Wolverine, and I was like, do I really care about Son of Wolverine? Why, I was sort of lukewarm, but by the time I got to the end, I was like, wow. I guess I do kind of care about Son of Wolverine.
Yeah. Well, he just, pulls up his fists and she's like, have you ever tried, with the claws? And he goes, and claws pop out.
Oh, shit.
And he's like, oh, huh, wow.
And then it was weird. The adamantium came out. It was like, whoa.
Yeah. The thing is, I worry that the answer to that is going to be some bullshit comic book crap.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Plus, they didn't really react to that strongly enough. They're like, huh. And he's like, yeah, they're not adamantium. She's like, yeah, well, they put that on after the fact. And then they turned adamantium. And he's like, huh. And she's like, that's weird. That's weird.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of forget about it.
Well, I think what was interesting, though, is that at least the people in the comic, they weren't... Because like normally in a comic, the people would just be retarded. Whereas in this, the parents were like, oh, okay, come clean. Yep. There wasn't like this excessive moronic drama. Yeah, it was just sort of normal comic book level.
Shadowcat just comes and she's like, yeah, you're Wolverine's kid. Here's a video.
Yep. And then, well, it was not a video. It was more like a Princess Leia message.
That's basically just a video.
from I guess Wolverine is dead in the Ultimate Universe. So it was
He can't really be dead.
No, he's probably alive. But
yeah.
So yeah, the art also was like freaking crazy awesome. Did you notice like during the opening of the comic with the drag race, I couldn't really tell what was up. I knew that these were probably important characters, but that's all I knew.
I expected it to be, punk kids racing and then they run into the son of Wolverine or some crap like that.
Something like that. And you saw on the cover there was a guy with claws, so, he is the son of Wolverine, obviously. But I didn't, know really what it was about. I just thought, okay, it's high school X-Men something. But then there's the part where, Kitty Pryde shows up at the house, and there's that panel in the bottom right where the light's coming over, and he's on top of the roof, and he has, like, the Wolverine hair. But he draws it in, like, such a way that it's not obvious the Wolverine hair, but then in the one panel, and then it makes sense when you look at the way he draws it in the other panels. It's sort of like almost Wolverine hair. He's got...
No one can pull off that Wolverine hair except Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe son of Wolverine.
Yeah. But yeah, if you like Wolverine, I would wait for the trade and get Ultimate X trade number 1. I'm going to buy it. And I'll see if trade number 2, if the rest of trade 1 is good, then I'll get trade 2. But
it made me
at least issue number 1 was cool.
It made me think a lot about Wolverine as a character in general, because recently Wolverine's been up in my FRC culture again. At Wildwood last year, we all watched, everyone but Scott, he wasn't around. We watched the Wolverine and the X-Men, like the new X-Men cartoon, which gets 1 million bonus points for the fact that it knows what made the original X-Men cartoon popular and does enough of that to, say, hey, look, we know, here we go. And even in the opening song, the theme is the original theme just kind of redone. Like, da-na-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na. It's like it's there in the opening of this.
I'll have to go check that opener out.
But it's weird because it's Wolverine and the X-Men. It's kind of Wolverine ends up being the leader and everyone else is trying to run away from the X-Men.
Yeah, the thing is, like, most people don't like Cyclops, but, like, Cyclops is my guy.
But depending on where you're reading, he's either just saccharine or a wuss.
I think that's, the problem is how he's written in the way they made his character. But
the problem with the character is how they made the character.
But if he should be the awesome leader guy,
He was in the cartoon.
Yeah.
The original cartoon, he was just awesome all the time.
Yep, that's the Cyclops I'm
Wolverine
all about.
and the X-Men, though, I like him because he's basically, Jean is gone and he's just kind of like, he's unshaven, drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels, and he tries to kill Wolverine. He's living like this scuzzy apartment.
No. But Wolverine is sort of, it's strange. It's like Wolverine, originally was like this side character in like some Hulk comic. And then he when the X-Men went to Canada, they like bumped into him along the way. And it's like, okay, there's this freaky guy, and he wasn't really, the Wolverine that we have today is like incredibly different, mostly because of Frank Miller, and that Frank Miller Wolverine just became so crazy popular that they sort of, now Wolverine is like, the most important thing, and they just stick him all over the place.
Well, that's why he's on every team. It's like Team A will be Cyclops, Storm, and Wolverine. Team B will be the Hulk and Wolverine. Team C, just Wolverine.
He's got his own comic book. He's on the Avengers. He's on the X-Men. He's on the He
makes cameos in like everything too.
There is not a comic book you can buy from Marvel almost that doesn't have Wolverine or a mention of Wolverine in it. And it's like, are there like 100 Wolverines or something?
He also has the backstory of everything. He was everywhere, involved in everything.
It's also, he's sort of invincible too with the healing power used to just be, originally it was just healing power. Now it's like, you could blow him up with a nuke until there's like
a cell left on that
one
bone.
Skin cell left, and eventually he'll just, recreate.
Eventually, oh shit, it's Wolverine.
Yeah.
And now he's pissed.
Yeah. So, but apparently he's dead for reals in Son of Wolverine.
He's dead.
Yeah, just like Captain America was dead. Yes, and so was everyone else.
It's interesting how, think about, it's everything that you would normally hate in a character. He's the invincible badass who is basically, he's all powerful effectively and can't be killed and will always win. And he has a cool, mysterious past and he's rugged and everything. And yet it kind of works, but he's kind of, maybe it's just because he's an amalgamation of every individual thing that in the 80s and 90s people thought would be cool in a character. And he also did a lot of stuff that, was done in manga that you didn't really see in American comics. But then again, that's just Frank Miller.
Well, I think a lot of what the problem is with Wolverine is that, Wolverine was just sort of superhero guy. He's just a fun guy with claws who was, slightly more, down to earth and rugged and angrier than the other, sort of tights wearing superheroes around him. He was a nice contrast. And then Frank Miller came and, pulled him all the way down into the dark Wolverine. But then after Frank Miller, a lot of the people doing like the dark, rugged, angry Wolverine character, what they actually ended up doing was more like a stereotype of Frank Miller's Wolverine. He would just be sort of like this angry guy who said bub a lot. He wasn't actually, it wasn't the real deal. It was like, this caricature of the real deal.
It's the same as, and I might get some flack for this, the modern, like the recent Batman movies, where Batman is basically just a guy who smoked too much. Just, I'm Batman. Like, that's all the character is now.
Mm-hmm.
But, we were talking about the origin story before and how, like, it was a mystery and, like, he's just the guy with no origin. Then they kind of explain the origin. But look at what they did. Every time they explain his origin in any capacity, it always has this element of, but what was he doing before that?
Yeah, where was he?
Never
where was
like,
he born? Who's his mom?
Yeah,
right. There is a comic, Wolverine Origins. I've never read it, but supposedly like that has his origin in it for real. So I don't know how far back it goes.
Yeah, well, I know there's like fighting, Louisiana stuff. There's Japan, which is basically just lone wolf.
That is true. It's like,
cub.
He's all over the world. He's got the Canada parts, right? Because he's from Canada, where that's where all like the, the Weapon X project was. But he's also got all this stuff that goes on in Japan. He's got all this stuff that goes on.
Now,
with
the Japan
X-Men.
stuff is weird.
He's got all this stuff that goes on in the South. He's got all this stuff that goes on with like the Avengers and like the superhero world level stuff. It's like, how can one guy have all these things in his life?
By making him the consummate badass, dark and brooding, especially in the Japanese stuff, ancient history, that he's all through history. Wolverine is there. He's just an Anne Rice vampire.
Oh, you think so?
No, at least character-wise. That's what his character functions as in a lot of those stories. And I think that comes kind of to the root weird stuff of Wolverine is that American comic books tend to be very static, and they tend to not, like... They basically kept, every time they had a cool idea, like, what if we had a character who was like this? They basically just said, well, let's just make that part of Wolverine's backstory. When they should have made a new character. Well,
the thing is, making new characters, right, is they don't sell comics. If you go to the store and it says, guy from Japan, right, they have guys from Japan. And those guys, superheroes, if you put them on the front cover of the comic and name the comic after them, it won't sell. But if you call it Wolverine, like... I've gone to comic book stores, and if you go on Wednesday, everyone, whether you buy comics or not, find your local comic store, go there on Wednesday, right, after work, and watch what the people who are regulars, just watch them buy their comics, right? You will see these guys. They'll go to the shelf, and they'll just buy every comic that has the word Spider-Man or a picture of Spider-Man on the cover. There are other guys, they'll go and they'll buy every comic that has a picture of Wolverine or Wolverine's name or X, and they'll just buy every single one that goes together. And this is how certain people, there are guys that go, they buy every Superman, that's all they do. They don't look at any other comics, they don't explore, they don't do anything, they just buy every Superman, every Flash, every, they have a thing, that's their thing, they buy every one of them, and that's all they do. So if you were to say, come up with this great idea for a comic story, and you include Wolverine in that story or make Wolverine the focus, your sales are going to be even if your story is poorly written or drawn. Whereas maybe your story would have been better if you used like some character no one ever heard of or a new character, but your sales are going to be right? Yep. Even if your comic is actually higher quality.
So as a result,
at least in the superhero marketplace as opposed to the mocha marketplace.
We have Wolverine, who has possibly the most crowded backstory of any character in American comics ever.
That's why the cartoon you watched, why is it called Wolverine and the X-Men? Because
Wolverine...
a comic that was just called a cartoon that was just called X-Men would not, get as much viewers. Right? I mean, there's a DC cartoon that a lot of superhero people like that's on TV right now. I've never seen it. It's called Batman Brave and the Bold, right? The original comic book was just called Brave and the Bold. Why do they call it Batman Brave and the Bold? Because if they just made a cartoon called Brave and the Bold, maybe a fraction of the people would watch it or care about it, as opposed to if you call it Batman Brave and the Bold and Batman's in every episode, a lot more people are going to watch it.
But there's still some sort of mystique about Wolverine specifically, because look at, when they made the new X-Men movies, right? And they were okay movies. The first one I thought was good.
The first one I was not a fan of. I didn't see
Thing
2
is,
or 3.
The second and third one were just terrible. The third one was a joke.
I didn't see second or third.
Remember, the third one was the one where, that was back when, shit's the Juggernaut.
Oh, the Juggernaut, bitch.
Yep.
All right.
When the Juggernaut was popular, they changed the movie and added a scene where the Juggernaut said, "I'm the Juggernaut, bitch."
Oh, right.
Yeah. And the movie was just a joke, but Wolverine was very popular as a character among normal people who went to see these X-Men movies, but otherwise never read the comics, didn't care about him. The movies were really popular among normal people. And there's something about Wolverine's character to where everyone always likes Wolverine. But maybe that's just, I want to call this blue cat syndrome. Emily and I were talking about this a lot last night.
Oh, okay.
I found an article of someone who clearly, I got to find the article again so I can link to it. He clearly does not know about the internet and furries, all right? Like, he has no idea about this and probably doesn't know about anime and cat girls either. But he said something along the lines of, ever since Avatar came out, I'm seeing more and more, like, cat people and things like that. And how there are people who would like a certain kind of thing. Like, maybe there's someone who was born to be a Gonagai fan. They just never encounter that in the wild in their entire life. But there are people who would be a furry or would like anthropomorphic art.
But they never encountered any furries, and that's why there are more furries, because they're on the internet and then they find out about furriness.
So suddenly...
So they would have been a furry, but because if there was no internet or if they didn't have internet, they never would have actually found out they were a furry.
But suddenly, they just go to see Avatar with their mom and they're like, blue cat people. Whoa. And I think that's what happened with Wolverine, in that he's the dark, brooding, awesome anti-hero, bad guy on the surface, but actually a good guy at heart, conflict. Like, he has every element that makes a good character that you often don't get in American movies. And as a result, the people who saw these movies, just they want to see a summer blockbuster. They really like Wolverine, because if there were more movies with characters like that, they'd love them. So I think that Wolverine is kind of the jack of all trades. He's a character that almost anyone will like. But because they put every kind of character in him.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's not just they put every kind of character in him. It's that he's a different character each time.
Yeah.
It's not like one. He's not like an everyman. It's depending on which book you read, he's a different man. In one comic, he's like, he's actually just he's mostly responsible. He's just sort of snarky and angry and doesn't like people, but he's a good guy and he does the good thing. In another comic, he'll actually do some wrong things just because he's that kind of guy. He's like, fuck you, right? I'm going to do the bad thing, Or in some other comic, it's different every time, but whatever.
I remember I was a huge fan of Wolverine. I didn't even like comics that much, but I collected the Wolverine cards. Remember there was like X-Men cards, like Series 1, Series 3?
That was something that I felt really, right, is when I was a kid, I came into comics and such in the 90s, right? And Wolverine, the first Wolverine I saw was sort of had the brown costume. There's orange and brown. And then I saw the blue and yellow one.
See, blue and yellow was my first Wolverine.
Right. But then, so I thought, oh, they changed it. Then they did change it from, the brown to the blue and yellow. But apparently the original was blue and yellow, which I didn't find out until more recently. That they actually changed it from blue and yellow to brown, back to blue and yellow. And then, of course, the more recent X-Men, they have all those X-Men-y movie-like costumes that are all different. I don't even know anymore. But, regardless, it was just, when I was a kid, Wolverine was like, I didn't read like those Frank Miller ones, so I only got, the X-Men Wolverine. Like I was reading the comic where like he had his metal ripped out and everything.
I remember that. Because I remember the
And then, oh my
cliffhanger.
God, he had bone claws. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh shit. I still have those comics in the closet. I
got them somewhere.
I can go dig them out.
That's the very brief era where I even got issues of comics.
Yeah, right? But actually, I'm thinking, maybe I should go back and find like the original Frank Miller Wolverines, like the ones that, transformed Wolverine from, the Canadian, just, superhero guy into, the dark and angry Wolverine.
Well, here's something interesting. So I only knew the blue and yellow.
Which, of course, was heavily inspired by like Lone Wolf and Cub and such and such.
Yeah, he's basically Lone Wolf, but there's no Cub.
Right.
But I read... the comic, the 90s comics, and it was just like kind of Wolverine's there. But because I saw, in the store, I'd see like X-Men cards, and then next to those, Wolverine cards. And I was like, why does Wolverine have cards just for himself? So I bought them and I started collecting them, and each one had a little bit of backstory on it.
And yeah, I learned a lot about, most of what I know about superheroes is because I collected freaking Marvel superheroes cards. Only comics I read were X-Men and Spider-Man 2099.
I read a little bit of X-Factor and X-Force, but only because that was the end of comics for me when I followed the Executioner's song. So I was like, I gotta buy other comics. And I sorted it all out and I read the whole thing and I felt really accomplished. And then I decided that was never worth the effort again and I stopped reading comics.
Yeah, so much work to get all the different freaking issues.
Yep, and most of it I didn't care about. Like, you'd be like, oh, now you have to read X-Factor, whatever, and I'd read it, and it didn't have anything to do with what I cared about. I could have just skipped it.
Yeah, but it said part 3 of 5, and you were trying to read all 5 parts.
Yep.
Yep.
But I learned so much about Wolverine from these cards. I still have a bunch of the foils.
Ooh.
I didn't get all of them, though, but I remember thinking someday these will make me rich.
Nope. Unless, you find everyone else who has that exact same card and destroy it.
Yeah, I guess I could work on that.
Yeah. Thing is, there's so much Wolverine shit now. Like, I don't understand. Like, it's the one thing that puzzles me, right, is that you would think when something's rare, right? Like, think about baseball cards, right? You can understand that, say, for example, a Babe Ruth baseball card be worth more, right? And probably because there's, not only are there less of them, right? But it's because that's the famous guy, right? But you look at something like a Wolverine card or a Wolverine comic. Well, there aren't less of them. In fact, there's more of them. He's the guy, but there's so many more of them. Wouldn't the, non-Wolverine comic be more, that is, in such lower supply, be in much, greater demand and price and such? I don't know. Whatever.
So I just randomly pulled up the Wikipedia, and it's kind of poorly written, but I have to read this excerpt.
Well, it's got to be gigantic, right?
It is, but I have to read this excerpt under skills and personality because this is just too funny, and I think I know who Wolverine really is.
All right.
During his time in Japan and other countries, Wolverine becomes an expert in virtually all forms of martial arts and is familiar with and experienced in virtually every fighting style on Earth. He is proficient with all weaponry, including firearms, though he is partial to bladed weapons. He defeated Captain America and Shang-Chi in single combat. He has a wide knowledge of the body and pressure points.
Uh-oh.
He is the successor to Hokuto no Ken. That's the only way to explain it.
But he doesn't make anyone explode.
He punched himself to give himself the healing factor.
The thing is, right, if you think about this, like, it doesn't really make total sense that he would beat Captain America, right? Because Captain America is basically like the perfect human who is also the master of all.
Yes, perfect human.
Arts.
Wolverine is the perfect mutant.
Oh, shit. I guess that's how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, healing factor, he's basically God.
Yeah. But it's like, oh, he's basically God. Yeah, except in Marvel Comics, this guy's like, Galactus or whatever.
What about, even DC? I mean, Thor. Thor is a superhero. It's Thor.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Thor could beat Captain America.
Yeah, could Thor beat Wolverine, though?
Or here, let's see. Here's Captain America, powers and abilities. He has no superhuman powers. As a result of the super soldier serum and Vita Ray treatment, he is transformed from a frail young man to the perfect specimen of human development and conditioning.
So Wolverine could just kill him.
His strength, endurance, agility, speed, reflex, durability, and healing are at the highest limits of natural human potential. It's been said his body regularly replenishes the serum. It does not wear off.
Up. There's more, too. Blah, blah, blah. Due to his increased lifespan, he speaks almost all languages and understands almost all cultures. English, Japanese,
is that
Russian,
really? Wolverine really speaks all languages?
English, Japanese, Russian, Chinese, Cayenne, Spanish, Arabic, and Lakota. He's also known for knowledge of French, Thai, Vietnamese, German, Italian, Portuguese, Korean, and Hindi. When Forge monitors Wolverine's vitals during a Danger Room training session, he calls Logan's physical and mental states, quote, equivalent of an Olympic-level gymnast performing a gold medal routine while simultaneously beating 4 chess computers in his head. He's basically just a Mary Sue who kicks everybody's ass.
I didn't really, they've really upped Wolverine's power. Originally, he was just strong dude with claws.
But he's a gruff loner.
A healing power, as in if you cut him, it'll grow back.
He's a gruff loner, often taking leave from the X-Men to deal with personal issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, except in Wolverine and the X-Men, where everyone else does that. And he also totally makes out with, yeah.
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 Yeah, right.
Basically, that whole thing is just him desperately wanting to bone Jean Grey.
And then she dies.
And Jean Grey desperately wanting to bone him.
And then she dies, and then she doesn't, comes back, and then she dies, and then she comes back.
Actually, there's this cool thing that
she's
happens.
currently dead. I think she's going to come back soon, though.
Of course she's going to come back.
Oh, man.
But in case anyone, Wolverine and the X-Men, the reason we keep saying, oh shit, it's Wolverine. We were stinking drunk, everyone but Scott, watching Wolverine and the X-Men. And the MRD, the mutant response something, the people who arrest mutants, they have a little heads-up display. And every time they look at a mutant, it's always like, his power level is over 9,000. 9,000, no shit.
Lol.
And there are all these scenes where, they'll be looking at some other mutants and be about to, fight him or arrest him. And suddenly Wolverine jumps down. And I feel like, based on Wolverine's power, it should be like mutant, mutant, mutant. Oh shit, it's Wolverine in red. And that became kind of like the FRC catchphrase.
All right. I think we've done all about we can on this show.
Wolverine is, I don't know, I either really like the character or really hate it, but I think I actually just really like it.
It depends on which Wolverine is there at the time, It's like some Wolverines are great and some are not so great. Because this is what happens when you have a character. Look at someone like Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter is pretty much completely controlled by J.K. Rowling, I mean, there are fan fictions, but those don't, count, right?
Yeah.
But Wolverine, the real Wolverine, he's in movies, he's in cartoons, he's in comic books, all different writers, all different directors, all different, right? So it's always the same, there's some things that are always the same, the hair, he's a dude, he's never a female, he's strong, he's got some sort of healing power, he's got claws. But everything else is different every single time. So, is Wolverine really a single character? Same for Batman and so sometimes he's good and sometimes he's not so good.
Due to high-level psionic shields implanted by Professor Xavier, Wolverine's mind is highly resistant to telepathic assault.
Mm-hmm.
He also possesses psychic scar tissue.
Actually,
did you see that news article on Slashdot about the Wolverine factor?
What is it?
They basically found a gene that if you turn it off in mice, they don't scar, and they basically just regrow damaged tissue.
It's like a starfish?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can turn that on in mammals.
Yeah, but starfish is not... I would be cool if I had that power, but it's not Wolverine-level power. If you stabbed me, I would die. I wouldn't, grow a new heart and come back to life.
Yeah, but, cut off a finger, you could theoretically grow the finger back.
Yeah, like a starfish.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. That's completely
That'd
believable.
be great.
Yeah, it would be great.
Yeah, but
at the same time, I would still not want my finger to get cut off.
No, but I would like to have the regeneration, as long as it doesn't just cause cancer.
That's also true. You might, grow. They might remove a cancer, and then, like a starfish, you would grow back the cancer. That would be bad.
All right, I think we're done here.
Yeah.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.